Hello, and welcome back. We're now in the 300s. That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, lesson 301 in the workbook for students. And today we're going to talk about how multi-layered A Course in Miracles is. And we're also going to be talking about not judging, I know, right? And God's world, right? Remember that the overarching theme for the next 10 lessons here in the workbook is what is the second coming? So, if you would like to take a look at the previous video, What is the Second Coming? I spent some time there talking about what it is and what it is not, right? And that's helpful because that frames the next 10 lessons. It's kind of an overview and a backdrop. However, if you were to just pop in and watch just one of these videos on its own, the idea would, of course, stand on its own. Why is that? A Course in Miracles is like that. It's, well, consider the author, Jesus, who knows precisely what he's talking about and knows precisely what to say and to whom and when the person reading or listening to the material or viewing a video that someone's presenting is going to understand a certain idea. If you've been through the workbook or the course, the text, more than once, you will have had the experience of reading a passage and thinking, I don't remember that. I don't even remember that that was in there. Or you could see a passage that you recognize and it means something completely different. It's not the wording of the course that has changed, it's you and your experience. And it's multi-layered, multifaceted, and in fact, it communicates on several different levels of understanding at once. You will hear and get out of A Course in Miracles exactly what you need in the moment. It is beautiful in that sense. You will hear from this message exactly what you need to hear in exactly the right measure and exactly the right way that you're meant to understand it today and go forward and apply it. And if all you're meant to do today is sit there and kind of toss some doubt around in your mind, thinking, could this really be? Then that's what you're meant to do. And that is a tremendously valuable part of the process. Every piece of it is significant. So, lesson 301 today brings us to the idea, and God himself shall wipe away all tears. Okay, that's uplifting, isn't it? And God himself shall wipe away all tears. Well, not literally with a Kleenex. God's not going to extend a divine arm. This doesn't have arms, not a human, remember, and offer us a tissue. Not literally. But what is meant by that is that God is love. Right? God is love. And it's very, very interesting. The commentary and the prayer for lesson 301 that accompany each idea at this stage in the workbook start off talking about what we can do. It says, Father, unless I judge, I cannot weep. Unless I judge, I cannot weep. It's brilliant because it puts the action where the action needs to be in ourselves, our internal workings, right? The changing of our own mind. Unless I judge, I cannot weep. Unless I judge, I cannot be pissed off. Unless I judge, I cannot suffer. Hence the emphasis in world spiritual practice A Course in Miracles is no different, on non-judgment. This is a very, very, very powerful statement about the importance of forgiveness, about the importance of the practice of forgiveness as we're invited to approach it in this course. If we judge, we see ourselves as cut off, as separate, as competing for scarce resources, all of that. It's suffering. In fact, the Course just calls it like it sees it. Yeah, says it's hell. Separation is hell. So you could live in a posh mansion with a multi-million-dollar yacht, a beautiful view of the beach or the mountains or something like that, and eat great food, have a really, really wonderful kitchen to cook in, you know, all that classy stuff. You could have all of that and still be in hell. Separation is hell. Doesn't always feel like it, does it? The trappings of the world do, in practice, distract us from the goal, the peace of God, which is deep down what we want. It's what interests the people in general, people, including yourself, in spirituality. You know there's something more to it. You do, you just know. You can deny that you know, but you do know. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. There's a lot of other stuff that you could watch on YouTube. That's an understatement, isn't it? Aren't understatements fun? So, when we give up judgment, we see things differently. This is the different perception that this course is aimed at teaching us so that we may experience it. Eventually, we move beyond perception completely, but as we've seen in past lessons, that final step is taken by God Himself. What we're doing is we're preparing the way by setting aside our judgment, by setting aside blame, through the practice of love, through the extension of forgiveness. That's how we practice what actually is. We're attenuating our minds to it. We're laying aside the obstacles that serve like a veil, like a fog bank, like a wall, that serve as an obstacle to our experience of truth. As the Course puts it, it's about removing the barriers to our awareness of love's presence. So that's what we do each time we forgive, is we're setting aside judgment. What happens then? Well, when we set aside judgment, we see the world as happy, as joyful, as forgiven. The Course refers to this ultimately as the real world. Right? Of course, the world isn't real at all. It's a complete illusion. However, while we're here, it's a tremendous learning laboratory. Right? It's an opportunity on a platter to practice forgiveness. Everything that we see and touch and taste and feel is a reflection of what's going on in your mind. Good, bad, or ugly, right? Everything, our entire experience is a giant living, breathing practice opportunity. It's a tremendous gift. So we're invited in A Course in Miracles to use it. really, we're invited to take charge of this moment, the only moment that we have, and forgive and choose love. That's the same thing. Extend love. Choose peace instead of fear. That's what we're invited to do. When we do, there is no suffering. It may return when we choose poorly 15 minutes from now. I mean, you could finish watching this video, pick up your cell phone, and find some really tasty, combative political news. I always like to use politics as an example of ego clinging in action, because it is just that. It's specialness on a platter, isn't it? It's uplifting one group of people and absolutely demonizing another. Yeah, one group is right, the other's wrong. And always has been wrong and always will be. Damn it. Right? It's a practice opportunity on a platter, isn't it? So you could experience great serenity right now, and then choose the ego in 10 or 15 minutes. Now, when you do, not if, right? When, because we all will, it's habitual, and we find ourselves sliding back into it. The benefit of having practiced this material is present moment awareness. You will be able to recognize that you've gotten off track, that you've chosen the ego, that you've chosen your darkness, and return to the light. Forgive. Choose love. And yes, it's tempting to berate ourselves. That is part of a lot of our habitual conditioning, isn't it? To think we suck, we're scum, we can't. How often have you told yourself that you can't do these exercises in the workbook? How often have you told yourself that you can't do anything in life? This, in a very real, tangible sense, is no different than anything else. Well, we can. We can, because the free will that we have to choose in the present moment has never been taken from us and never will be. It never will be. So no one or no thing can foist that choice upon you. It's a decision that you make, which is, well, in my view, powerful and uplifting. And rather than a burden, it's a tremendous gift and an opportunity. So I invite you to see it that way, especially when you're feeling like you just want someone else to choose, right? You want to throw your hands up and say, yeah, I'm done with this shit. It happens, right? It happens. We all have days where we don't want to. Even though we know deep down that we want the peace of God, sometimes we might pick up that phone in 15 minutes and see some political news, and we might see one of our friends or relatives commenting on it because they can, adding fuel to the fire and triggering you even more. You know, sometimes the world just dishes you what looks like a tremendous ration of shit. Let's put it that way. Yeah. That's really kind of a PG-13 way of describing the vicissitudes of life sometimes, is it not? So when we're in that state, the gift of spiritual practice is recognition. It's present moment awareness and returning to the present moment, forgiving, recognizing that you're carried away, and returning to the light. In the present moment. That is spiritual practice. And that is one of the gifts, is it enables us to recognize this so we can correct course right there without judgment. Remember, judgment, suffering, non-judgment, joy, happiness. Just like lesson 301 tells us. Yeah. And that's what we do. Now, one thing that you'll find in spiritual practice is that the periods of upset don't last as long, do they? What may have thrown you off course for an entire day last year or 10 years ago or last week no longer throws you. You can return to the present moment much quicker. The strife, the judgment thoughts don't last as long. Maybe they're not as severe, or maybe they're every bit as severe, but you're just able to recognize them quicker and return to love. That's what all of spiritual practice is. And lesson 301 is a very poignant reminder that without judgment, there's no suffering. Yes, that means we're heaping it on ourselves. However, it also means that we can alter that with a change of our mind. That, my friends, is what spiritual practice and A Course in Miracles, this workbook, is all about. Changing your mind. So the sooner we all do it, of course, the better. But before I wrap up here, I just want to say, please be kind to yourself. You know, we are our own worst critics almost all of the time. When you think about it, and you may have a boss or a partner or an ex-partner or a child or family member that's extremely critical of you. Maybe you can do nothing right in your mom or dad's eyes, for example, but we're all too often our own worst critics. We're our own saboteurs. We really are. And as you go forward, when you recognize that you're carried away, forgiveness is even more powerful because it includes forgiveness of yourself. We can never leave that out. When we forgive one person, we forgive ourselves. There's no separation. Remember, that's a powerful component. So in your work and in your daily practice of forgiveness, it helps very much to specifically say that you forgive yourself. This is a dream. You forgive yourself for dreaming it. Yeah. That's a powerful practice. So be kind to yourself. Don't let yourself off the hook and say, I don't need to forgive here. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is don't beat yourself up because you get off track. This is just like any aspect of life. In fact, spirituality is life. So you could apply all life to the lesson of present moment awareness and returning to love. That is what it's all about in the present moment. So please be kind to yourselves. You're doing perfectly well. Remember what we said earlier in this video. You'll get out of today's message precisely what you need to get, what you mean to get, and what you can work with today. And let's all give thanks for that, because that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. All right, everybody. We will see you here on the next video. Thanks for joining me.